all of these sacred things to those places that sort of sink into your DNA, because you kind of, as an artist, absorb them. And so I think that one way or another they come out, when you're reaching into that space to try to pull something out and create something, then it sort of, I think, translates in that way.
Absolutely. So what's the creative process for you like when you're on the road? Do you create music when you're on the road? Is it too chaotic? How do you actually have some time to
Well, we
to
tarnish
process that?
the romanticism of our process if we get into it a little.
Yeah, we can't talk about it.
I always remember that was really funny. There was something like, I think it was George Harrison was working with the Monty Python group to do the Life of Brian, and he went there to see the shoot, and they were bickering the whole time. And Eric Idle, one of the Python guys, had said, I think he just saw our process, and it kind of ruined what he thought it was. And he's like, if I saw the Beatles in the studio bickering, I probably wouldn't want to see that either.
Romanticism right out the window.
I mean,
gone.
I think when we're writing, there's a little bit of, there's definitely, warfare, and you try to be.
Put it lightly, it's
you
just
try
a
to
bit
be
of warfare.
reasonable.
That's all. Just a little war, and that's.
Try to be reasonable. I mean, at the end, we're all on the same team. We're working together to collaborate to create a concept. And I think when you're constantly moving about, there's this busyness of the mind that you can't hush, and so you can kind of harness it. I think if you to be able to aim it in the right direction and use that energy to create something, and that happens a lot when you're touring, and we're forced to kind of be in the same spaces. So whenever, of course, we see each other in those rare, strange hours, then things happen, and then you kind of try to catch it.
It's interesting because I can remember a handful of times where we've actually written songs on stage while we're performing a show. It's like with his new, like again, those sections that we sort of improvise. There's been things from those that have turned into entire songs on their own, and so I think same thing on the bus. We'd work something out. We'd be playing guitar. Like
Everybody's sober.
Yeah, the entire time.
All time.
That certainly doesn't help. But it's it's great because I think you live through your art. I think as a touring musician, your every single day is to be the artist living through your work, and so you don't intend to pick up a guitar or an instrument or whatever, and then you write a song. It just happens,
In reality, touring takes up the majority of our schedule for the year, so you have to learn how to stay creative and keep that part of you active while you're on the road.
Alcohol doesn't help.
Alcohol does not help.
Yeah.
But no.
Gets you places, but no, in the long run, probably not a great idea.
No, but really. I mean, it's important to exercise that part of you on the road as well.
Yeah, and that was a perfect plug because I was going to ask about actual exercise and kind of physical wellness. And how do you guys manage that? Obviously, you go find a place to have your feet on the grass, you find some trees, your little moments of escape. But how do you actually stay healthy? How do you take care of yourself?
I won't lie, it took a few years to figure out because you're thrown into this new world and you really want to start with the little things and focus on learning how to sleep on a bus or learning how to sleep with these weird time schedules, and your whole day from morning to night actually shifts later because bus call is 2 or 3 in the morning. So you start with
Then
that.
you're jumping time zones.
You're jumping time zones, and then that affects your eating. So I start with those little things, and then it got to a point where I wanted to physically become a little bit more healthier, and so I started this past year waking up and going on runs and running around the towns, and that's a great way to kind of go see a city, but also just staying active. One of my dad's favorite quotes is, "You stop moving, you die."
It's true.
And,
That's nice.
And you can't do shit.
You can't do shit when you're.
My grandfather used to say, you can't do shit when you're dead.
That's why we're here. It's my favorite kind of exercise.
Yeah.
If there's one that you take away, from this, it's your grandpa's advice, right? You can't do shit when you're dead.
That's it.
That is the takeaway.
It's
for
nice
today.
hearing it come from
Right.
your mouth. Actually,
Right.
to hear you say that, it's really nice. It's
Yeah.
always Josh saying, "You can't do shit when you're dead," but it's nice to hear someone else say it. It's realized.
So that's great. So you guys, you find the places to go running, you find your little escapes, but what else did you have to learn? Because I think especially if you haven't necessarily traveled a lot yet professionally, it can feel frankly really glamorous, and learning how to sleep on a bus isn't super glamorous. So what are some of the other things that you had to figure out?
How to stay entertained, is also another thing. Because the moment you become so stagnant, you start
die.
feeling yourself slipping, and
As
then all
Dan
of a sudden,
Wagner would
your
say.
limbs go cold. And I think that what was the question you asked?
I remember the answer.
Delineated.
but I don't remember the question.
Exactly. It was, well, now I've forgotten it too. So it was
Shit.
essentially like, when you guys started touring, what were the things that really surprised you that you had to kind of learn how to do in a touring way? Like, how do you eat again? How do you interact?
How to sleep 2 feet away from this guy.
Yeah.
Right again.
It's
He snores.
scarring.
He
Luck-
talks in his sleep.
Luckily, going back to the bohemian, upbringing, life on the road isn't too dissimilar from that. Everybody's jamming on the drums and keyboards and stuff and singing songs. And I remember I'd be like sleeping underneath a table, like on the wood. And so it was just outrageous. And, I was used to being kept up late or, getting up early or doing pretty much everything we do on the road anyway.
Yeah, again, it was helpful to kind of have the upbringing we did, but it's still chaotic. And I think it is as fun as it can be. It can also be that equally as exhausting. So it's really, again, finding the rest and the time for rest and time for exercise, which is integral to being able to do this. Otherwise, I don't think it would be at all possible. And that, I think, is one of the trickiest things about what we do all together.
So guys, I just have to ask, you guys have talked a little bit about your upbringing, more of a bohemian lifestyle. For folks who are not familiar with Frankenmuth, Michigan, will you guys tell us a little bit? There is a singular holiday that dominates the town. Could you guys talk a little bit about
shit.
that?
Why are
'Cause it's
people laughing?
Silver bell.
unique.
Is there something funny about
Because
that?
it's a very silly place.
Silver bell.
What's so funny
Oh,
about people
Christmas
dressing up
time
like elves
in
and
the
walking
city.
around?
Oh, what's so funny about
Yeah.
Lederhosen and
Well, they're wearing Lederhosen the
the
whole time.
biggest
they're saying it.
Christmas store in the world?
Yeah, if you didn't get it, it's Christmas.
It's a very it's weird. It is like almost what you'd think of as like the traditional term of the bohemian kind of thing, but it is a weird place because it's Little Bavaria, they call it, which is sort of like they've got, so it's a German town with this interesting heritage, and it looks German. I mean, everything about it is kind of Bavarian, and it's known for having the biggest Christmas store in the world, they call it. It's a very bizarre.
Hold for applause.
I call it that because it is.
And also, growing up there,
If you haven't
we would
been, I
have-
wouldn't save your allowance.
It was more of a more of a tourist town. So you get all of these people coming in for Snowfest or Autofest, and we would get to have kind of like a new crowd every time we played like the local official hall. Really. But we got a new crowd like every festival, So it was great to have all these people.
They said we couldn't bring anything that wasn't,
Hell is that?
that didn't have like a Fiji logo on it. And I said, well, there's nothing about a flask that would be too distracting. There's
Exactly.
nothing on it. It's just a flask, so I think it would pass. I didn't bring one, but I was thinking.
What was the question again?
Frankenmuth.
Oh, Frankenmuth.
Thank you for that, Jake. Thank
We
you.
often try to avoid this one.
You do.
Yeah, as you can see.
I love it. I've been to Frankenmuth. It's a wonderful town.
No.
Have you?
I have. It's got amazing fried chicken, not Nashville fried chicken, but you
No.
guys do have some good fried.
It's
Okay.
What was your impression of that? What was your takeaway?
Yeah, let's turn
The
this
interesting
around a
thing.
little.
Has it changed your life experiences?
Guys, I'm not going to lie. The 365 of Christmas is a little interesting. It's a little unnerving to be in nonstop.
Let's hear it.
You just said
Let's hear it.
You want to know exhausting? That's exhausting. And you're in this 24/7 Christmas globe,
Right.
and you skip
hell.
school like it's a cartoon. It's really fucked up.
Exactly.
That was it.
That was
Okay.
it.
What
Well,
he
that's-
said.
That's why we asked, because we know nothing else. We grew up in that environment. So to us, it was normal.
Well, and there's so many festivals there.
Until we
There's like
realized
a
it
festival
wasn't.
every weekend or something. It's crazy. So that's where we started playing first. Was in the streets of the outside the cafe, and then there was this hall in town that we would play, and we'd have the doors wide open when we would have festivals and things like that. So it was interesting. In the one year, we had the name Greta Van Fleet up on the marquee. And there's actually a Gretna Van Fleet, who we took the name from, who lives in Frankenmuth. And she's still around. She's
Her birthday
thinking
was the other day.
late late 80s. Her birthday was the other day. She
Amazing.
sent
Oh.
gifts, she sent pictures. It was cute. So we had the name up on the marquee, and then people started calling her and asking, "What are you doing at the hall?" This is really weird. So her and her husband had to come investigate to see what was going on, and then there's these half-naked barbarians on the stage.
Yeah, we were hot shit back then.
Talking about us.
We were hot shit back then.
Yeah, we were. It was something. Remember those days?
Those were the days.
Ironically, I was one of those
What happened?
curious spectators at that show as well.
Yeah, because you weren't the drummer.
This is the crazy thing. Daniel would show up, at our house,
Percussionist, rather.
at some point.
Pardon.
But he'd see all the shows and stuff, so he could get up and he could play all my guitar parts, so he could play all the drum parts that we were doing.
And
it was
bass
like-
parts and vocal parts.
And then
So Danny is
we
a
realized-
multi-instrumentalist. That's something that people a lot of the time don't know about him. He's a fantastic player of all sorts.
Because I have pointy shoes.
That's why.
He's an
That's the
artist.
secret.
That's exactly
He's an artist.
why. That's the secret.
So we did have a conversation earlier. The
Because
pointy
he's
your
point-
shoes,
pointy
the more
feet.
creative you are.
Ah.
So
Yeah.
I was just thought it
See.
was like the pointy
Got
of your
some pointy
feet.
shoes up here.
we don't know if that's
Oh, those are
evidence,
really
but
She's really creative.
we've got some good ones here. guys.
Pointy boots. I've got a bit of
Wow.
round going on. I think Daniel's more creative right now.
Yeah.
So guys, maybe
Unfortunate.
with that, I'd love to know a little bit. So Josh, you mentioned you like to get to a venue a couple hours beforehand, but you also want to navigate being there too soon, getting too much time
Yeah.
in your head. And so how do you manage your mental health, your mental wellness when you've got this really chaotic schedule that takes you away sometimes from the norm?
Sometimes I think that the people around me that I surround myself with, who are with us day to day,
Stress you out.
all the time, really stress. No, they're wonderful people, and I think a lot of the time that really helps because they can kind of keep you in check. And if you're having a really tough time, that you can kind of talk to them, and they can sort of give you like the hug that you needed that day, or just to talk about what's going on. And if I feel a little trapped, I'm like losing it, I think, and that sort of thing.
It goes back to the
I
whole
would-
family thing. We're a
Yeah.
family.
Exactly. So if you're surrounded by people that you love and enjoy and trust, that's really huge. And of course, yeah. So I think that's a big part of it for
Yeah, I think the family thing certainly helps. I imagine that even the sort of pop stars who are kind of isolated and singular can be a bit challenging because they've just they don't really have the infrastructure around them to keep it.
Well, it's not as necessarily built in automatically. 'Cause
Right.
There is like the four of us who are very close, and we can have those conversations.
because it could
you
be
know.
overwhelming.
Like literally one day I was in the jam room, we call it. I was playing something on the keys, and Sam I think got on the kit, and then all of a sudden I just broke down. I was just something about this song. It was like, wow, I must be exhausted, or maybe I'm stressed out. But there's something about this just just lost it, And he came to me and he said, "You all right?" And we sat together and talked, and it was like, felt much better. This is right before
I always
the
like
show,
to-
too, because
yeah.
there's
I
always
said,
so much
Josh,
emotional
Josh,
tension going on
Josh,
all the time.
It's okay. Stop being a.
Not being such a
It's interesting because I think with musicians or
nicest
people
thing
who
anyone's ever said to me.
tour or travel, they're sort of on the edge of oblivion all the time. You're sort of always on the edge of reality and this dream world because what you're doing is so complexly dissimilar from what people would do with a normal job. Like wake up, shower, get to work, and then go home and see the kids
it's not
and have
a
dinner.
9 to
You don't
5,
do that.
and you don't. You're not in the same place regularly. It's even in moments that seem domestic or normal to me. It's weird. You like just taking a little hike. Like Percy Warner. It's like this is weird. This is very strange.
But it's
And,
also like I think it's intensified. All the human aspects are intensified because of it. So it's like someone's ups and downs in their daily life are kind of like this, And then with musicians, those arcs are a bit more.
And it doesn't
intensified.
help that you have that artist sort of inside of you that makes everything seem a little bit more extreme as well.
It completely rewires your brain when you are on the road. You have this way of life, and that's a great example because the highs are higher and the lows are lower, and it's kind of hard to remain in that middle sort of area. But we all kind of aim to keep each other there, which is the goal. But mental health is a really important thing because it does change the way your brain works, and it gets confusing. And I remember the first couple of years of just not understanding what's going on, having fun, but at the same time feeling a little different. And so having each other is very helpful. Therapy is encouraged and very helpful as well.